Ilona checked her reflection one last time. 35 years old, but she could pass for younger. Her skin still held the glow of youth, and her eyes sparkled with a vibrancy that belied her age. Her fiery red hair cascaded down her back, a stark contrast to the emerald green of her eyes. She had always been proud of her hair, a symbol of her untamed spirit. Those eyes, they held secrets, secrets that were buried deep, hidden behind a facade of normalcy, secrets that simmered beneath the surface of her ordinary life. A life that seemed perfect to the outside world but was far from it. Secrets hidden from her husband Andrzej, who was oblivious to the storm brewing within his wife. Andrzej, a kind but simple man, believed Ilona worked late at the bakery. He was content with his life, never questioning the long hours she claimed to spend there. He never questioned her late arrivals or her exhausted sighs. To him she was the perfect wife, dedicated and hard-working. He never suspected her visits to her sister were anything but innocent. He trusted her implicitly, never doubting her word. He remained blissfully unaware of the profile on erudite.pl, a hidden world accessed only when he was at work and their daughter Ola was away at university. This was Ilona's escape, her secret life. Ola, their only child, was the light of their lives. She was the glue that held their family together. At least that's what Andrzej believed. He saw their family as perfect, unblemished by the realities of life. Ilona loved her daughter, of course she did. But there was a part of her that resented the life she had been forced into. But Ola represented a life Ilona felt trapped by, a life of routine and predictability, a life that suffocated her spirit and left her yearning for something more, a life she desperately craved an escape from. She would often find herself staring out the window, dreaming of a different life, a life filled with excitement and passion. And so, under the cover of fabricated excuses and white lies, Ilona sought solace in the arms of strangers. These encounters were her escape, her way of feeling alive again. Men who saw past the facade of the dutiful wife and glimpsed the fire that still burned within her. Men like Tomek, who made her feel desired and alive, who reminded her of the woman she used to be. With Tomek, she could be herself, free from the constraints of her everyday life. They would laugh together, share secrets, and for a few stolen moments she could forget about her responsibilities. But these moments of happiness were fleeting, and the guilt would always follow. She knew she was living a double life, and the weight of her secrets was becoming too much to bear. As she looked at her reflection one last time, she knew a decision had to be made. She couldn't continue living this way, torn between two worlds. It was time to choose, to face the consequences of her actions and find a way to reconcile the two halves of her life. The rain hammered against the windows of the dimly lit bar, creating a rhythmic yet chaotic symphony that seemed to echo the turmoil within. It was the kind of night that swallowed sound and secrets in equal measure, a night where the world outside felt distant and muffled, as if wrapped in a wet, heavy blanket. Ilona sat at a sticky table, nervously twisting her wedding ring. The dim light cast shadows on her face, highlighting the worry lines that had formed over the past few months. She was early, her mind racing with thoughts of what was to come. A gruff voice startled her, pulling her back to the present. "You, Ilona?" Tomek towered over her, his presence filling the small space between them. His voice was rough, yet there was a softness in his eyes that caught her off guard. He was younger than she expected, early 30s perhaps, with rough hands that spoke of hard labor and eyes that held a hint of mischief, a spark that seemed to promise adventure. Ilona felt a familiar flutter in her stomach, a mix of excitement and apprehension. It was a feeling she hadn't experienced in years, a reminder of a time when life felt unpredictable and full of possibilities. "Yes," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the fragile moment they were sharing. He pulled up a chair, his eyes never leaving hers. There was an intensity in his gaze that made her feel both exposed and understood. "You're even more beautiful in person," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face. His words were simple, yet they carried a weight that made her heart skip a beat. Ilona couldn't help but smile back, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, something she hadn't done in a long time. The air crackled with unspoken promises, a tension that was both thrilling and terrifying. It was as if the universe had conspired to bring them together on this rainy night. The rain continued to fall, a relentless torrent against the windows, each drop a reminder of the world outside, a world that seemed to fade away as they lost themselves in each other's company. Inside, however, the atmosphere was heating up. The dim lights, the soft murmur of conversations, and the occasional clink of glasses created a cocoon of intimacy around them. They talked for hours, their conversation punctuated by shared glances and knowing smiles. They spoke of dreams, regrets, and the paths that had led them to this moment. Tomek, a construction worker, was rough around the edges, a stark contrast to Andrzej's gentle nature. Yet there was a depth to him, a complexity that intrigued Ilona. But there was a raw honesty about him that drew Ilona in. He spoke with a candor that was refreshing, a stark contrast to the polished lies she had grown accustomed to. As the night wore on, they found themselves leaning in closer, their voices dropping to hushed tones. It was as if the world outside had ceased to exist, leaving just the two of them in their own private universe. They shared a laugh, a moment of pure joy that seemed to bridge the gap between their worlds. It was a connection that felt both new and deeply familiar, as if they had known each other in another life. The rain began to ease up, the relentless downpour giving way to a gentle drizzle. The night was slowly turning to dawn, the first light of day beginning to creep through the windows. They stood up, the spell of the night slowly breaking. There was a sense of reluctance, a desire to hold on to the magic for just a little longer. As they shared a final look, there was a promise in their eyes, a silent agreement that this was just the beginning of something new and beautiful. They walked out into the rain-soaked streets, the world around them slowly coming back to life. But for Ilona and Tomek, the night had changed everything, setting them on a path that neither of them could have predicted. The bar faded into the background as they moved forward, their steps in sync, their hearts beating as one. It was a rainy night rendezvous that neither of them would ever forget.